here's what I really want to ask you. Here's why I really was interested in having you on. The Knicks have obviously won. Everyone's very excited about this. People are excited about this well beyond the 5 boroughs. There's been a lot of allegations of bandwagoning. But additionally, it comes hot on the heels of J-Lo having the spiciest Subway take of all Subway takes, which is to say that if you were not born in New York, you were not a New Yorker. Mm-hmm. Now, by J-Lo's own estimation, I don't count as a New Yorker either, even though I moved there as a teenager and graduated from high school in New York. That being said, I support J-Lo to a certain extent. I would modify her terms to include people who had done some elementary, middle, or high school education in New York. New York formed those people. It is in their data. It was before they were fully hatched adults. But otherwise, I'm a New York. I'm a gatekeeper.
Yeah. Well, I got a lot of ideas about this. I mean, if you really want to talk about it, I got a lot of stuff. But my sibling, we're from the Bay, right? Richmond, California. And the idea of transplants is so funny to me because obviously I'm out here in New York, but my sibling like considers people from like San Jose that move to the East Bay transplants. Like she's like, if you're not in the right cities in Northern California, don't you dare claim it. So I get the gatekeeping and I grew up in it. Now that I'm out here, I'm like, hey, we need to be nice to those people because maybe they're cool. And
okay, this confuses the issue though, because the question isn't should you be nice to people? Should you treat people fairly? Do they belong? Are they integral parts of this city? Are they welcome in this city? These are all straw man arguments that I've seen bandied about. When the real question is, are you from New York? And people are saying things like, well, this would mean Donald Trump is from New York, but Zohran Mamdani isn't. This isn't a moral test. Okay, it's a geographic one.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that if you're cool, it takes 1 year to be a New Yorker, and then if you're not cool, never.
Incorrect.
But I'll go with you because you know what? I listen to Black women. I believe them. And...
this is also not the audience for that, Chris. Now look. Are you representing to me that you believe yourself to be a New Yorker? Do you identify as a New Yorker?
No.
As being from New York?
No, not at all. I'm
why
from
is
the
that?
Bay, and everyone that knows me knows that. I'm loyal to the soil.
See, now we're coming around on my number one frustration with the backlash against J-Lo, which is that the desire to be from New York or to identify as New Yorker to the exclusion of the place that actually made you strikes me as a little bit sad. Like that makes me a little bit sad for your hometown. You don't have to like where you came from. You can have critiques of where you came from. But there are so many interesting parts of America, and to want to sort of distance yourself from where your parents live and where you were born and raised because like you went to NYU and stayed or whatever. I'm sad for Ohio. I'm sad for Indiana. I'm sad for Arizona. I'm sad for wherever you were made into the person that you are.
I think that that's right, but I also think, and again, I don't know, I have no horse in this race, so it is what it is. But I think people move to New York and then they consider themselves as being almost born again, and that's the thing that they're celebrating. So, you know, like I said, I would never claim being from New York. I love people that do. Maybe because I don't have strong opinions about it. If people want to get to 10 years and say they're a local or a New Yorker, I don't have problems, but I respect people that hold the line, the mass line.
Thank you. Thank you for that respect. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, let me formally reintroduce you to the podcast. We have Jean-Paul Fartre back on the pod. He is a popular content creator, leftist, socialist, communist. How do you identify Jean-Paul Fartre? AKA
yeah,
Chris.
I guess I'm a communist, socialist. Both are fine.
Okay.
Marxist, Leninist, Maoist.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, the I'm a Marxist descriptor has gotten some heat on the podcast of late because there have been a couple of guests who I've had some disagreements about with here or there about various issues, both of whom I appreciated and enjoy very much. I particularly love talking to Gabriel Rockhill on the show.
I
But
saw that.
a couple of recent guests who've said I'm a Marxist and then made arguments that some folks in the audience felt were not.
Yeah.
You said you listened to the Rock Hill episode at least. What do you make of that?
Um, I think that that really means you are a Marxist. If you have other Marxists accusing you of, what is it called? False valor, stolen valor.
Stolen valor, yeah.
So that's that's definitely par for the course. No one hates leftists like leftists do. But there are things that I think personally, and if I were to know people in person, right, I would teach them very, very specific things. Um, but in regards to like very particular nuanced points, I think there's a conversation to be had, but it usually is above the head of the internet, which is where I see a lot of these arguments happening. And by that, I mean to say, there's Trotskyists and then there's Stalinists and Maoists and there's the New Left and there's all of these different sectors of Marxism. And in reality, Marxism is like a living constellation of thought that reflects the world, that develops over time. And in a lot of ways, these arguments are used to kind of force people into agreeing with other people and also like kind of repress or discourage people wanting to read certain things. Like I would never call myself a Trotskyist, a trot or whatever, but I think that a lot of people I really look up to thought he had a lot of cool things to say. So, if my heroes think that this guy's worth reading, like who am I to say that he's not? And I think that's the humility
Okay,
that people need to have.
but I think the critique has been the opposite actually, that
Hmm.
by announcing that you're a Marxist, you can insulate yourself against criticisms of behaving in a way that is perceived to be neoliberal. So my disagreement with Gabrielle
Hmm.
Rockhill was pretty narrow, basically over how we saw Vote Blue No Matter Who differently. My disagreement with Matt Huber, I think, was a little bit broader.
Hmm.
He had written this piece about why it is that Democrats shouldn't have to run on climate change. And I felt, and some folks in the audience clearly felt, that it was creating a permission structure for Democrats to not do what they have never really wanted to do and to continue to be beholden to their various corporate big oil interest groups or what have you, and not pursue a Green New Deal, et cetera. And that by
Hmm.
saying I'm a Marxist, you are more likely to trust an argument that on its face strikes you as very much a conservative argument.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I got one thing to that I would love to talk to you about maybe later. I don't want to distract us, but just this like argument I hear sometimes, especially now that I'm online, where people will be like, that sounds like another argument, right? I don't think that's a good one. Like we have to really engage with things in the context that they're being said. But so the original question is with why don't you refresh my memory? Go over it with Rockhill one more time. What were you guys saying?
So with Rock Hill, it was about vote blue no matter who, right?
He was
I'm a
saying that we
pretty
should.
um I don't want to mischaracterize him.
Mhm.
So I will refer people back to the episode,
Mhm.
but trying to very honestly steelman it. His feeling was that it is basically better to organize under the conditions of the lesser of the two evils, meaning the Democratic
Mhm.
Party, that voting is a kind of de minimis act. It takes 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and it's worth doing. Many
Yeah.
people feel this way. So it's not like a crazy argument. I know that I'm more of a hardliner on this. My feeling is that if we genuinely believe it's lesser of two evils, but it's two evils and it's two heads on a hydra that
Mhm.
are the same beast, are you lessening the contradictions instead of heightening them? when you participate in the fiction of democracy in that way, instead of making it necessary to provide alternatives, whether they be electoral, organizational, labor, whatever it is, that will actually have the chance of breaking the duopoly instead of continuing it in perpetuity.
Okay, well, you're going to get me in trouble with all the Marxists online, but I'll just say, for the most part, I think I agree with Rockhill. It's not the same. I mean, I didn't vote for Kamala Harris, so.
And why not?
I thought that, I think I was caught up in Palestine specifically.
So what was it about Palestine? I know that sounds like a bit of a wild question, since obviously the gravity of the genocide sort of speaks for itself, but I think it's worth being specific because it's not always going to be a genocide, but there are going to be other things that cause a significant magnitude of harm that might be less likely to be pinpointed. It might be more diffuse. You might not be able to put your finger on it as clearly.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it doesn't matter. So I want to be specific about what the litmus test is, what the line is.
I think that's totally right. I mean, so there's two things that are happening. One, I'm telling you what I think right now, having lived through the second Trump presidency. At the time of the election, I really was like, there is no difference. I really felt like under Biden, Palestine was clearly being destroyed, dismantled with impunity. I don't know yet if the International Criminal Court had accused Netanyahu of being a war criminal, but it was roughly around that period.
Yes, I believe that happened definitely during Biden.
Yeah, and so to me at the time, I was kind of like, how bad could Trump be? I mean, we lived through one presidency, and clearly there is no, like, the lesser of two evil is still committed to genocide. So what is the difference? And again, I don't even know because we don't have a counterfactual here. Maybe under the Biden administration, we already know that, back in the 90s, he supported tough on crime acts. I could easily see him doing it again. And the people in his camp, Kamala Harris, top cop, most lethal military in the world in human history. So it's not to say that things might have been different. Maybe they really would have been just like the same machine with a different, like, nice face. But at the time, I thought they were identical. And now, having lived through it, I was shocked, I will say, during the first few months of the Trump presidency. I mean, I guess now we're so normalized to being shocked. I mean, I share a birthday, obviously, with Donald Trump. And
I was going to ask. I was doing the numbers.
Che Guevara as well, just to throw that in there. But
You're trying to balance it out.
yeah, well, inside you are two wolves. They're Trump and Che. But like, we live in idiocracy, right? He on the White House lawn, he had a UFC gladiator spectacle, and
I know, I can see it from my roof.
And then you're right, exactly. And then some guy insults Michelle Obama after like 10 years of them being in office, and like everyone's wearing American flag underwear or something. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like this like silly thing, while also we're engaged in a war in Iran and gas prices are going up, groceries aren't cheaper. Like, there's all of these things happening. So it's hard not to kind of be like, I think Trump might have been worse. But I see your point. If there's a viable option, I guess what I'm saying is, if there's a clear viable option of third party candidate, I'm going to do it. But I'll hesitate, I guess. I know you want a hard answer, but no,
I don't. I was just saying that it's interesting to me because I did not vote for Kamala Harris because I didn't think she was better. Mm-hmm. Like, I will easily admit to it's a lesser of two evils. Obviously, Trump is more evil. That was never the concern. I would even, for the sake of argument, stipulate to Kamala being 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times better. That's not really the point to me. Mm-hmm. The point is that if Kamala is bad enough, and if she's bad enough that she would actively pursue genocide, and even worse, get people who are supposed to be the bulwarks against that kind of politics, like AOC, running cover for her in that effort, then she's actively dragging our cohort, the left, back away from being a revolutionary driver pushing us to where we need to go as a society to prevent untold volumes of ills from happening down the pike, and actually co-opting us to the cause of evil. And that if I actually want there to be any change at any point, there has to be a heightening of the contradictions and an exemplification of what the two-party system actually is, so that people opt to leave it ultimately. And it is very interesting to be sitting here on a day after an election day where there were so many progressive victories across the country, including our new, socialist mayor here in Washington, D.C. And I found myself wondering, does that happen but for the phenomenon of Donald Trump? Does that happen if people obviously Zohran Mamdani and his popularity has done a great deal, and that happened while Joe Biden was still president. But do we have people recognizing the fecklessness of the Democratic Party and have this willingness to side with progressives and to not fall for the smear campaigns, but for having witnessed someone like Mamdani or Bernie Sanders or whomever having gone up against the machine of what the Democrats are? And without that lesson, are we in a place that's more regressive than we would be without Trump as a lightning rod? And it's not something that I would intentionally want to happen because of all the people who have obviously been killed and harmed during Trump's administration
I get what
so
you're
far.
saying.
Yeah.
No, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, it sounds like we're kind of talking about accelerationism here, right? Like,
Well,
as
that's what I
things
said in
get
the last episode. It's like I didn't do the acceleration, but I can't. I wish it could happen without that acceleration. But what I'm not going to do is, I guess, stomp on the gas pedal to keep my enemy safe. You know?
Yeah, I really do hear what you're saying. I mean, I guess maybe the reason why I don't have such a clear view on this is because it's just not like a singular focus of mine, although obviously I do think to a certain degree it's important. I guess my question is, and I'll pose this to you, but also just like rhetorically to the audience, like, how do you think you convince someone to gain radical politics more? Like their life becoming worse, right? Or you actively doing something to make their life better? Now, I'm not saying that in regards to electoralism, right? Because I'm not hugely, I don't believe that much in it. I do think that it is a very simple thing we should do. And if there's a very clear candidate like Zohran Mamdani, then we should vote for him. I don't advocate for people just completely stepping out, and also engaging in those campaigns to agitate and bring people and inform people and educate people on socialist politics. I do think that's really important. But I also just think that there is no situation that will be so bad that spontaneous revolution will occur.
Right, but these are all straw men, Chris. No one's saying it's spontaneous revolution, and no one's saying that there's a zero-sum game between making someone's life worse, which is, by the way, it's not what we're doing. It's what Trump is doing, because Democrats couldn't win an election that could have been handed to them on a platter if they had just stopped a genocide. But also, simultaneously to Trump making things worse, Zohran Mamdani is making things better and making the case for that, right?
Yeah.
So, again, and I've said this before too, and some of the more radical folks are mad at me for this, but nothing I have said precludes Democrats from taking my advice and shoring up the Democratic Party and making Democrats very successful in a way that heads off the quote unquote revolution, right? But my bet is that they won't, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they could be listening to me and saying, this is a guide to fool the left into thinking that we're decent. We're going to throw them some scraps and we're going to make the Democratic Party last for another 200 years. That's what they could do. My bet is that they won't, because my bet is that they would prefer to lose than to betray their donor base.
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
is why we're going to have.
Let's take that one step further, right? Why couldn't Kamala, or Biden stop the Palestinian genocide? Obviously, because they've just invested too much in Israel as a military outpost. That's it's not an option. Or
it is an option, but it's one they're not willing to take.
I guess, I got the option to jump out my window. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not going to do it. So, in order for America to be America, it's not.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
I
are
don't
you
think that the American project is in any way extricable or being able to be isolated from the imperial military, like global project that is happening. And there is no candidate besides like a grassroots, completely like grassroots campaign that would be backed by a militant working class that could ever change that system. And if we were able to change that system, I don't even know if you could consider the country the same country. It would be like a dramatically new thing.
well, so then why, Chris, did you not vote for Kamala Harris if you don't believe that it's possible for basically America, period, to say stop the genocide? Are you saying more broadly you don't think that America can decouple itself from an imperial project? Or do you specifically mean you don't think there could be any end to Israel's genocide until it came to its completion, which is
Well, I'm saying there's two different things. Can America, the imperial project, stop the genocide while still being itself? No. Can like the American people or people that are in America organize effectively so that we like require we have so much domestic unrest that and like militant demands that the levers of power for a certain way have to rein in their military infrastructure? Yes. Like, does that make sense? I'm not saying that America, as in both the country and the people that live here, can't change things. I'm saying that, like, I don't know, for the last what, 20 years, there's been three, four families in the presidential seat, right? Fact check me on that. But like we live in a place that's completely dominated by capital, just like you said, the donor class, but the politicians are a part of the donor class, right? So it's a
right. But the
capitalist dominating system, and there is no alternative so long as that infrastructure exists.
so that's an argument for going ahead and voting for Kamala Harris. N'est-ce pas?
Why? Why?
Because it's not going to change anything with respect to American imperialism anyway, aka the war
Mhm.
in Gaza, and therefore you might as well just get the lesser of two evils, and then we don't have to have MMA fighters on the White House lawn.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I didn't think about it that deep. I'm not trying to back out of this. I guess, like, to me, um, electoralism is useful in the sense that we have the ability to talk to constituencies with something that people are already like socialized to engage with, right? The political theater that exists in this country, everyone grows up knowing that, hey, you got to have a civic duty. Maybe we do it less than we should, but people at least are trained from a very young age to have those sets of values and behave that way. So, as people with alternative politics, we intervene in those situations so that we can educate people about different modes of political activity, which is something that you can do every day by joining an organization. I don't know, mutual aid, whatever it is for you. Um, but that's the only reason why I think the elections are worth thinking about. Because, like, insofar that the elections are about who's in the big seat that's going to call the shots, I don't think that they like really have the option. Like, I don't think Trump or Kamala Harris have the like authority to rein in Israel.
What do you think would have happened? I mean, Bernie's not a great example because he is a Zionist and what he actually wants is, in all of this is a little bit confused. But let's pretend for a moment that Zoran not only was born in New York, but that he was born in the United States at all and were to become president. What do you think that would mean for
Zoran today.
American foreign policy? Yeah,
Zoran today or the fictional Zoran that becomes president?
Zoran today. Zoran today.
Uh, I don't like love hypotheticals like this because like maybe he would be able to do it. Like I don't know, but I just think that like in order for Zoran to get into the presidency, if that were a viable option, it would require a militant working class because in the same way we saw with Bernie, right? I forget which time he ran that it happened, but the the DNC colluded, right, to work against him, and that would happen again and again and again. So in order to overcome that, right? In order to overcome all of the collusion by the capitalist ruling class, you would have to have a militant working class backing the candidate that is basically threatening massive unrest if like the rules aren't followed. because the capitalist class would break the rules.
So this is an interesting question and kind of brings us to what I wanted to talk to you about today, which is sort of the state of the left's stance on imperialism. Mm-hmm. I have been noodling on this, listeners know, for a couple of episodes recently, also with Gabriel Rockhill, where it has become increasingly obvious to me, as so many people are sort of drawn in by the rhetorical leadership that Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and some of these others have shown in advocating for Palestine and their criticisms of Israel, that there is a need to distinguish a sort of left anti-imperialism from a right America First nationalism, even if they have overlapping goals with respect to Israel-Palestine, because the project is relatively limited. And if there is a movement that sort of comes out of the widespread frustration with Trump's foreign policy, then I would like it to be of left character rather than right. And this question got posed really pointedly in a recent interview between Matt Duss, who was Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisor, and I believe also the foreign policy advisor to AOC, and his recent interview on Ezra Klein's New York Times podcast. And the way he framed it up in these questions to Matt Duss, which, maybe we should just play a clip of it, because I found Matt Duss's sort of answer to reveal how much there is ambiguity there is around this question, is the left for a left nationalism or a left internationalism?
We can propose all the good ideas we want for how America should act in the world, but if they're not rooted in an actual durable political consensus, they will fall apart.
I think one interesting, maybe the sub-theme of some of what we've just been talking about is what you're trying to build here a left nationalism or a left internationalism? And the reason I ask it like that is that there have been some moments where what I've sort of heard is very much a rising tide lifts all boats, that, America can be out there making other countries more stable, richer, more prosperous. That would, rebound to our benefit as well. And then there's also a question about our common project. There are a lot of policy tools that I think it's not all zero sum, but some of it is about privileging American workers over people in other countries. And I think that's a very reasonable thing for a national community to do, privileging American industries over industries in other countries. Right. But there are choices on the margin of these two projects.
Sure.
How do you see that?
I see myself very much as a left internationalist, but I also recognize that to develop a durable and solidaristic internationalism, it has to be rooted in an American domestic political consensus. And a lot of Americans, probably most Americans, for very good reason, are mainly interested in themselves, their family, their community. And in order to kind of offer a workable foreign policy that people will support, I have to show, and leaders have to show, we have to show that it is answering those concerns.
What does that imply for how America and Americans understand the relationship, the competition, whatever you want to call it, with China? You earlier were sort of critiquing the idea that our relationship with China should be built on maintaining American primacy. But if not that, then what? How do you understand what we want vis-a-vis China?
First we have to understand we need to coexist with China. China has a huge economy. It is already a major player on the global stage. And I think there's a school of thought in Washington who believe that China's ultimate goal is to supplant the United States and to reshape the global order in its image. I'm less convinced of that. But for me, the question always comes down to, okay, what does the United States want? We're going to need to find ways to cooperate with China. There are going to be areas where we have competition. There's going to be areas where we have conflict. But I think the problem with defining the relationship as competition is one that eventually will lead to conflict. And I do think it's interesting. Donald Trump, a lot of people were surprised, including me, given that in his first administration, he is really the one who made China the focus. And Washington very, very quickly shifted focus to that. And Biden picked up the ball in his presidency. And interesting, Trump, when he came back, relatively little attention on China compared to what a lot of people assume would be the case, given how prominent it was in his first administration.
in lieu of American primacy, what's left? And do you sort of hear Ezra Klein teeing up? I was very surprised to be listening to this right after I had recorded the Rock Hill episode, teeing up this void that seems to be emerging of what does it mean? What is America's role when it is no longer anti-imperial, no longer imperial? What does it look like? What does American foreign policy look like in the absence of pursuing its own abstract benefit, material benefit, at risk of all else?
Yeah. No. One, I just want to say the answer was so wonderful. I mean, I believe in a internationalism, but recognize that that will only be gained through domestic policy that will resonate with Americans. I think that's like spot on. But what will America look like if we were to give up on imperialism? We would have to probably reconcile with the fact that a lot of countries would be really mad, right? And in order to really divorce ourselves from the imperial project, we'd have to give up all these military bases, right? And now all of a sudden you have to make deals in good faith. You have to make deals with people that aren't doing it under duress. Now, I don't know what that world looks like. And I don't even know how you would begin to peel those back, but that's what needs to be done, because right now America has over 900 military bases worldwide that surround China, that are in all over the Middle East, all over Africa, Europe. They're in the Philippines, right? That is the tool that the U.S. uses to stay relevant as it falls into obscurity economically, technologically, right? Like, what does the U.S. lead other than like weapons manufacturer and financiers?
Okay, so I guess my frustration with Matt Duss's answer, and maybe it's not fair because I obviously listened to the full episode. They were talking about, at one point, Duss had raised the question of a global minimum wage.
I think discussing a global minimum wage is another thing. Just for an example, that's something that Senator Sanders has proposed for starters. Because I think part of the challenge that we face is, we have, a developing world, if we can, whatever term we want to use, global South, that is, has very young populations. They are already engaged in shaping the global agenda. The United States needs to have a relationship with these countries. Obviously, China has done a lot of work to build its own relationships in these countries. I don't want to treat these countries as simply an arena for U.S. and China competition, but I think we need to approach this in a positive some way.
What would the global minimum wage look like? How would you apply that to a country? I was in Kenya not long ago. I mean, huge amount of Kenya is in the informal economy. Yeah. Country where much of the country is very, very poor, right? And certainly not the poorest country in Africa. When you're imposing a global minimum wage on these countries, presumably with some of the stick being American trade opportunities, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, I don't know what it looks like, but I'm saying the United.
Wait, whose job is this?
Yeah, I mean, getting the United States to propose this and putting the United States in the position.
But I'm asking, is it a good idea? You have to know what it would look like to know if it's a good idea.
Yeah, okay, fair question. Still working on what it exactly looks like. But what I'm saying is proposing, putting the United States in the position of, we are not just there to extract wealth. We're not just here to empower the people that have been dominating and exploiting you.
I guess maybe the question I was getting at here, because it's interesting to me where you went with that. I think the question I was getting at there is the global minimum wage an effort to protect American wages or to raise other countries' wages? Because those are two actually quite different projects.
Right. I mean, I think it's based on the idea that Americans' security is bound up with the security and prosperity of others around the world. I mean, this is not just a high-flown bit of rhetoric. I do think as someone on the progressive left, that's an understanding that I bring, is that if we can diminish deprivation, disease, and suffering in other communities around the world, ultimately that is going to accrue to our own safety.
I agree with that. I think the thing I'm pushing on here is, in what way would America imposing wage standards on other countries whose economies it doesn't really understand and certainly does not directly manage, right? When I do foreign economic reporting, and probably when I do it from places that are poorer, I am always struck with how maddeningly hard it is to make a poor country, forget rich, just middle income.
Okay. And it was raised in the context of, on one level, it prevents kind of what do you call it? Outsourcing, or limits the advantages of outsourcing depending on what that wage is. But on the other hand, it doesn't make the cost of goods more, et cetera, in the United States in a way that upsets American consumers. And so this back and forth provoked Klein to ask the question, get to these series of questions, which led him to, well, what are your goals? When he's asking, are you for a left nationalism or left internationalism? He's asking, are we pursuing policies that make life better for the American worker, including keeping cost of goods down, et cetera, which happens at the tip of the American sword? Or are we saying that we want global fortunes to rise, which might mean that there are trade-offs for Americans? And if what you said initially is correct, that you have to have the consensus of the American public and American workers behind you, is that consensus thwarted by pursuing a left internationalism that has trade-offs versus a left nationalism that's America first? Genuinely.
I hear the question now very, very clearly. I mean, this has deep roots in Marxist debate for like the last 120 years. I think that the German Socialist Party, right before World War I, betrayed the movement and said, defend the fatherland. So Lenin was upset about that. But I guess like the way that I see it, and this is why I brought up the fact that we would have to be reconcile with the fact that we'd be vulnerable to foreign attack, people that really have a axe to grind with us, is because if we reeled in the military, which is $1 trillion in annual spending, that money could go to projects like universal health care, universal education, universal transportation, that universal childcare, things like that. Like the money is there because we always find it for the military. And the reason why we find it for the military is because we need to make sure that the one thing we have, the imperial project, the imperial military infrastructure, is cool, because otherwise other people will come and take it from us. So that's my point, is that like, if we're talking about the bread and butter issues of the average American worker, the money is available if we reel in the imperial project. We already spend the money. It's there. If we're asking like, does the left movement in America, are they invested in an uneven exchange relationship with the third world? Like, I'm not. And I think that it would, if our leftism, if our socialism is required on the domination of underdeveloped countries, then the whole thing is meaningless.
Right, but you have to see what's happening though, right? In real life. Like you can't have I had this lovely man, John. Oh, here it is. John Washington. With his book, The Case for Open Borders. This is a leftist podcast. Many people in the audience are far don't think I'm radical enough. People were upset about this argument about open borders. Bernie has said, and Ezra Klein brings it up in this episode, because it happened in an interview between Bernie Sanders and Ezra Klein. Open borders is a Koch brother plot, right? And the argument is that it obviously depresses American wages to have this unregulated source of labor in the mix that is being paid substandard wages under the table, et cetera, undocumented labor. And that the thing that's best for Americans, that framing has you invested in border control, potentially very authoritarian border control. And if the only guidepost is what's best for Americans, that's how you get to Tucker Carlson, not necessarily how you get to the kind of anti-imperialism that we on the left would want. And I also think that there is a fear, understandably, and this is, I think, what sort of Gabriel Rockhill was getting at, that we're just not strong enough as a left to be in the position to convince Americans that their lives are going to have to change in ways that feel bad, even if they aren't bad in total or in the long term. And that we need to stick, just not talk about that part right now. I mean, he didn't say that, but I'm editorializing. Sure. Let's just not talk about that part right now. There's all of these things that we can do to make America better for Americans. So let's just focus on Medicare for all. We don't have to get to the open borders of it all and what our international obligations are. But I do find myself sort of unsatisfied with that. And I wanted to have you speak to us about some of the historical precedents. I liked that you made reference to what had happened with the German Socialist Party. You're saying betraying their internationalist commitments in the time before World War II. But what can we learn about how to make this transition? Because I do feel like the moment is demanding some distinctions be made, because a new, very powerful political strain is emerging because of Israel-Palestine that is going to take a direction.
Totally. And you're saying maybe it could get people, right? And I think that's
100%.
Yeah. I think that the in many ways the anti-Semitic tendency in anti-imperialism, I see it pop up again and again. I assume that's what.
Say more about that.
I think Tucker Carlson is taking advantage of that. Like when I hear him and even Candace Owens, like I feel like they're just taking advantage of a maybe embarrassed and in many ways repressed poor white working class that is holding on to the last scraps of white supremacy that exists, right? That it doesn't materially, it's not really here anymore. I think it's like 50% of the country, the bottom 50% of the country controls like 2.5% of the wealth, right? That's a majority white people because we live in a majority white country. People are looking for any reason to not take on a full leftist politic for whatever. I don't really get it, but like, so they're holding on to white supremacy and a anti-Semitic anti-imperialism because of Palestine and because of its like affront through Instagram and social media, I think is a way to kind of reconcile those two values. But when I think about how America or the people here in America can reorient the future towards something good and really towards something where we survive, because if we don't do it, we will die due to climate change, due to starving to death, right? Like it's gonna happen. Like these are facts of the world. You can't argue with these. If we don't adopt an international solidarity, right, which means that we support, and I don't even know what it means to support foreign countries, but like in situations that America specifically is involved in, because we are here, right? We have some type of control over that situation by way of like messing things up in an organized militant manner here. Like if we strike in America, and we saw this during COVID at the very least, if we strike in a militant way, we have leverage to pull things in. But insofar that the American working class is not organized, is not militant, is not willing to cause problems economically here at home, then we don't have the power to affect any place that America has military bases internationally. Like, that's the kind of internationalism that I understand, right? We can only do what we can do here. Like, saying stuff like, maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, I don't know. But like, we have to be able to become organized and militant so that we can pull on the levers of power here in America.
So it seems obviously the case that the kind of labor actions that have taken place in other parts of the world to stop bombs from literally being shipped to Israel, to grind the gears of the military industrial complex to a halt, are useful and productive and effective and courageous and fantastic. And there are obviously differences between how America's labor is organized versus other places that makes it more likely to happen there as opposed to here. And I understand the project of applying that pressure at home. I also saw that they just put a bunch of protesters. Let me Google this real quick, actually. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those new kids that they just gave like a 30-year sentence to.
The 15 charged in Minneapolis? Is that what you're talking about? The ICE protests or different thing?
No, I think I saw those RICO kids. No, here we go. It is also true that 4 Palestine Action activists have been jailed for a total of 22 years for causing $1.2 million pounds worth of damage. They're in England, and fracturing I'm not going to read the Hezbollah aspect of that timeline, but their protests at a Israeli weapons factory in the UK. We have spoken at length about all of the surveillance infrastructure that's going into effect, the RICO charges that get filed against people for GoFundMes, the buildings of the cop cities, the ratcheting up of funding for police forces, the tanks in the middle of the cities, all of the things that are designed to head off at the pass exactly this kind of protest that you're describing.
Yeah.
So that is tough. That's a tough road to hoe. I'm going to put that to the side under the to be organized folder. I think what's interesting to me about the back and forth between Ezra Klein and Matt Duss, though, is that it imagines Ezra's asking a question about even if that were to be successful, and or if Zohran Mamdani were to be president, if there's a leftist ideology guiding American foreign policy, what does that actually look like? At one point, let me read. Ezra asked something along the lines of, Matt Duss talks about resisting sort of America's global hegemony. And Ezra asks him to dial in and says, well, is our goal, like, what's better for the global system? What does that mean outside of American supremacy? What, if the goal is what is best for America? What is the goal of using our power as long as we have it, and our authority and our muscularity in the world, our military might in the world? What does it mean to have an influence on global foreign policy as an American if it's not to advance our quote unquote interests, American hegemony, American primacy, American superiority? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that there's a lack of imagination in the project.
What is the question to me? Because what I'm hearing is I don't know. Wait, can you rephrase the question? Because I'm not sure.
Okay, let's play. I want to find the.
I think that there is a difference that gets conflated often in foreign policy, and we move on different sides of it. Between, is what we are trying to do uphold responsibilities that maybe no, we don't really want to be doing, the American people don't really want to be doing, but in the long term, it's better for the global system that somebody is doing it, versus are we actually trying to dominate the system, rig it in our favor, keep competitors from rising up? And those are sort of two different problems, because on the one level, if you say we should stop just trying to ensure American hegemony, which I think is like also a little bit different than primacy, right? Hegemony is a control, primacy is a leadership. I think a lot of people like nod and agree, and I probably nod and agree. And on the other hand, I just think, say, Ukraine is a hard problem.
Yeah.
And that we don't really want to be doing this, but a lot of things happen in the world that we don't like, and we have to kind of make kind of tough decisions around them. But I'm not sure that, in some of these cases that a President Bernie Sanders, a President AOC, a President Chris Murphy would be free from the pull of American responsibility, the sense that if we don't stop something from happening, it'll happen. And then we will be blamed, both, we here being this imaginary administration, by either the American people who don't like what just happened, or bad things will happen in the world, which will eventually end up on our doorstep.
I think that's all. I mean, I agree with that. I mean, there are certain things, that are beyond the U.S.'s control. It's not, I've never said, and I don't believe that it's all part of some grand plan. There are a lot of contingencies that popped up, a lot of unforeseen events like the Russian invasion of Ukraine that the Biden administration certainly did not want to happen. And as I said, I think all things considered, they responded to that pretty reasonably. But I do think that when you look at the sweep of Biden's foreign policy, kind of captured in, one of the things that he said upon taking office when he went to Europe, America's back. We've gotten past this brief little hiccup with this weirdo Donald Trump, and now America's back doing America things, and everybody can chill. And America's back in the business of helping, the global system run. And I think we had already moved beyond that.
So Matt Duss says, the reason I'm focusing on this for a minute is that I think there's a difference that gets conflated often in foreign policy. We move on different sides of it between what it is we are trying to do, uphold responsibilities that maybe we don't really want to be doing, the American people don't really want to be doing, but in the long term, it's better for the global system that somebody is doing it, versus are we actually trying to dominate the system, rig it in our favor, keep competitors from rising up? These are two sort of different problems. On the one level, if you say we should just stop trying to ensure American hegemony, which I think is also a little bit different than primacy, right? Hegemony is a control, primacy is a leadership. I think a lot of people nod and agree, and I'd probably nod and agree. This to me, I listened to this back like 4 times. Are you hearing what I'm hearing? Am I the only one that's hearing in this? First of all, Ezra kind of seems to be. I don't know that I see the difference between the hegemony and the primacy that he wants to be there.
Yeah, I don't see a difference at all. It's just saying it's nice or saying it's mean. But
right.
But and this is my exact point, is that like there is no world where you can truly say you're on the left if you support any type of American domination. It just like if we need to have a policy that I'm saying that I ascribe to, I guess it's isolationist, only because it's just like not our business. You are allowed to engage with them as sovereign leaders of their own nations, and then you can engage in trade deals, but you cannot create situations where you rig the game. And the leadership and a primacy are identical.
So I'm inclined to agree, but this is what's so interesting. He then, where I cut Duss off in the answering the questions, he then goes to talk about Ukraine and how Ukraine is a tough situation, and you need America and the world to be able to push back on countries when they do territorial expansion. Putting aside the half the country feels this way about Ukraine and not about Gaza of it all, and putting aside the arguments about America and the West having provoked Russia because of its insistence on territorial expansion to the east that it said it wasn't going to do. There are people who believe that there has to be some sort of cops of the world, and they are imagining a left foreign policy as including still this good cop role. And I think there are people who are comfortable with that, because they say we live in a world with bad people who do bad things, bad countries who do bad things, just like people feel about the actual police force. And that as much as I don't like it when they shoot someone's dog who's celebrating the Knicks winning, or shoot a 1-year-old in the back of a car because you've accused the mother wrongly of stealing diapers. Cops still need to exist. There are some bad apples, but someone needs to be policing the world. Otherwise, it's lawless, and it best be America. And Matt Duss, and I've invited him on the show. I'd love to talk to him about this personally also, but doesn't seem to have, he kind of cottons on to this idea and doesn't seem to have done much thinking, as many people haven't, I haven't, about what it actually looks like to say we're a sort of post-America primacy, post-America hegemony world.
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, this is why the conversation is, to me, confused, because if there are American workers that are invested in this conversation, I don't really understand why, because the reason why we're over there is obviously to ensure American hegemony. And the reason why we need to ensure American hegemony is because of our extraction projects and, shotgun deals with the third world. That is the only reason. And those same people that are invested in that foreign project, that foreign extraction, are also invested domestically in exploiting and keeping wages low. So, like, the same people that are telling you we need to be safe, otherwise things will be so bad for you, are also making egg prices and gas prices so expensive here. Like, they said that the war in Iran was costing like $1.8 billion a day. Now it started on February 28th. It's been like 3 months. Yesterday, they said, not only are we going to give you $100 billion in unfrozen assets, but also a $300 billion reconstruction plan, and the sanctions will be like, under any reasonable evaluation, that means America lost the war. So, like, this is my point, is that America spent all of this taxpayer money to engage in the war, then lost, and in a situation that didn't need to happen to begin with, and the American worker just pays more money at the gas pump. So, like, the idea that, like, somehow our involvement in Ukraine, like, trickles down into some type of safety or positive benefit for the American worker is a complete fiction. It's an illusion. It's fugazi, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that what Ezra and Matt are doing with Ukraine is making what they perceive as a moral argument. Let's put Ukraine to the side, because there's been a lot of discourse around Ukraine between the left and the center. But let's take, World War II gets held up as an example of the one moral war, because for whatever the genuine reasons are for American involvement, there was a Holocaust. It was an egregious human righs disaster.
And the Soviets lost 20 million to stop it.
And the Soviets lost 20 million to stop it. But people, the argument is, it's good that these great powers had the power to push back.
I mean, that's, I don't know. We talk about Finkelstein, and I watched your episode with him in the interim. I mean, that's all caught up in the Holocaust industry, right? All of that is Holocaust industry narrative that, like, we stopped the big, bad, evil Nazis. Well, we didn't, right? Operation Paperclip, we brought them over here to work with us. We got them out of the country. We funded their lifestyles, and we didn't attack the Nazi industrialists, right? I think of the people that funded the Nazi war effort, the most prison time ever given was 11 years, but the most time served was 3 years. And that particular person then became the CEO of Coca-Cola Germany once he was released. So, like,
wow. You weren't already boycotting for Palestine.
Was in any reasonable way that, like, the American cop of the world stopping the Nazis? No, they were funding them, protecting them, and giving them cover. And then weaponize the deaths of millions of Jewish people to then justify American imperialism. So there has never been a war that has ever been fought for good reasons, at least as far as I know. It's always been about economic supremacy and global hegemony.
Yeah, the more I think about this, the more I am feeling the parallels between how difficult it is to convince people that we don't need cops anymore and to convince people or that we can build a world where cops aren't necessary. Um, and because people are like, do you want the cops to go to raid tomorrow? And I'm just trying to cut that off the path. That we can have a world where cops aren't necessary and that is safe and safer than the one we live in, and that the U.S. military isn't necessary and the world can be safe and safer than the one we live in. Um,
I
and
mean,
it makes me want to redouble my efforts, even though so much of the left has sort of shrugged off their advocacy around defund or abolish or Black Lives Matter as the craziness of woke point 1.0. How important it is to be able to make those arguments, not just because of the domestic implications, but for the international ones.
I have a conversation I'd love to talk to you about, and if you don't like it, you know.
Yeah, shoot.
So we're talking about how it's tough to convince people that we don't need cops, right? And I totally subscribe to that. Like, we don't need cops. And in my time working as a negotiator, a pretrial negotiator, trying to get kids off out of prison and jail, um, we always had to appeal to certain values of the court, and one of them was punishment. And then there's like rehabilitation, public safety, and property damage. It's like you have to appeal to those four things when you are speaking to the judge, advocating on behalf of your client. I never understood why punishment had to be in the mix. If I could fully meet the requirements of all three of the others, why do I need to punish someone? Right. And to me, punishment and consequence are a little bit different, but I want to bring this up because we're talking about is there a good war, the gravity of genocides, the Uyghur situation in China, right? In regards to the fact that the conversation almost completely disappeared once we saw on our phones every day what was happening in Palestine. And the fact that since 2017, when the American government and really, what is it, the Victims of Communism Foundation began to talk about the repression of Uyghurs in China, right? Um, there has never been a third party account for any mass graves, any deaths, any empirical analysis of sterilization. And they'll give the claim, they'll say that China is such a surveillance state that no one can find out any information. And yet the area of Xinjiang, I think, is like, there are millions and millions of people that live there, 300 million tourists per year go into that area. So if I find it really hard to believe that America couldn't find out with absolute proof, or at least some type of proof beyond what do they call them? Leaked documents randomly. This is why I bring it up. The reason why the Uyghur situation resonates with the American public, besides the fact that the American government wants the public to deal with it or to engage with that and feel bad, is because the one thing that they can say is that there are buildings, right? They call it incarceration. There is a repression of a population that exists. The Chinese, they call them re-education, right? This is why I'm bringing it up. If when we hear the word incarceration, we immediately think of American incarceration, which is literally modern slavery, right? People are forced to work, $1 a day, terrible conditions, completely violent, right? And they're in there forever, sometimes 20, 30, 40 years. I worked with people that had gotten out after 60 years being locked up. However, if the Chinese government is being authentic or even partially authentic, right, and there isn't this same level of violence, people are being taught vocational skills that allows them to get out and then have jobs, and they're still promoting being Muslim, then the fact that people are being forced to go into re-education is not the same as American incarceration, right? And I think that's the problem that people have, is that there are some societies that are hugely invested in some ways of trying to fix problems through a rehabilitative nature. Does that make sense? And I think that the American mind, at least right now, it literally cannot comprehend that.
Wait, are we headed toward America should have re-education camps? Is that the argument we're making?
America shouldn't. No, America specifically should not. They cannot be trusted with it. But what I'm saying is American prisons and Xinjiang re-education camps, I don't think that you can make those equivalent. And the only time America does is when it helps them with their international propaganda against their biggest rival.
So you're saying that we're basically being propagandized from all fronts. There is no big baddie that was ever taken down. The things that we say about America needing to police the world because there's a human rights abuses happening in other countries are fictions to justify the war machine, largely. Not that bad things don't happen, but our emphasis or the fact that we highlight some and ignore others is all about our sort of non-humanitarian incentives.
Imperial plan, yeah.
Okay. I'm fine with all of that. I do think that there still exists. I mean, that's a kind of re-education that has to be done, I think, with the average American, because we have been propagandized so hard to see the world as full of big Putin-esque baddies who need to be restrained. And even if you look at the way that Americans talk about China, even in the back and forth between Klein and Duss, Duss pushes back against the idea that China's goals are to dominate the world and to have this expansive impulse the way America has had, and the way that America argues Russia is, or that, Hitler had. And that's just a scare tactic to get us to want to engage, to fight with China. But that is, I think, the common conception, because it's like every accusation is a mirror of China. And I do think that is something that we need to be talking about in much the same way that we should be talking about decarceration, despite the fact that the left seems to be scared of its shadow on that issue. I hope to do an episode on this soon. I have been observing the extent to which so many of these left candidates, many of whom, as I said, have been successful, are being sort of ritually forced to apologize for their 2020 tweets. I mean, what do you make of that?
What 2020 tweets? I don't think I even know.
I'll tell you.
What on earth could they be saying?
All right. So, Daria Lisa Chevalier has been at the center of this witch hunt for old tweets. Let's watch this clip of her responding to some questioning from the New York Times' Ested Herden, and then I'll circle back to reading some specific tweets.
I want to ask about a couple other deleted tweets. You deleted more than 3,500 tweets after running for office. How do you think about, in hindsight, that kind of 2019, 2020 moment?
Yeah, well, just to make the record clear, sure. I did not delete those tweets because I was running for office. I deleted my entire Twitter account many years ago because I just found it was more productive to just be focused on my PhD and focused on my organizing.
That part is definitely agreeable.
Logging
off is always
I deleted the
helpful.
account. Yeah, I deleted the account, the entire account. And I know that there's a lot of discourse my opponent is spreading around me doing this because I'm running for office, but that's simply not true.
Okay.
And I do have regrets on how I expressed my values on Twitter, because my values are around dignity, it's around accountability, it's around justice, and I think rhetoric matters. Mm-hmm. I certainly wouldn't use a lot of the language that I used back then today, and I think it's deeply important that we use language that is unifying, language that allows people who might not at first understand where you're coming from, but can still hear you and can come to a place of empathy and understanding. When we use language that is not only accessible to them, but also kind.
Oof. What, she used what do they call it now? The R slur?
No, it wasn't anything like that. Are you kidding me? No, they're like ACAB style tweets. So I was I was trying to pull some of them up. No, they're not all ACAB. Okay. There are some tweets that are race discourse tweets.
Sure. I bet they're fun.
Interracial dating discourse tweets. White people hygiene discourse tweets. You know what I'm saying? Who's got a washcloth? Who's using lotion? Kind of discourse is my understanding of some of these tweets.
And empirically, have we proven her wrong on any of them, or she's just apologizing just for fun?
This is the problem, that some stuff just is supposed to be an indoor conversation, and Twitter makes everything an outdoor conversation. A super PAC, let me see if I can play this ad for us actually real quick. A super PAC that's backing her opponent plans to shell out 7 figures for an advertisement amplifying a post by Miss Chevalier calling veterans war criminals. According to a representative for the group, Progressive Unity Fund. I'm going to try to find that ad. There's one post that she's been dinged for in which she said in response to Kamala Harris's suggestion that migrants not try to cross the border, the do not come famous speech. She wrote, "I have no nuance to add. Fuck Kamala Harris." So, they're trying to do the how dare you respect a black woman shtick. She, of course, is also a black woman. But, the focus has been, I think there are some leftists, I shouldn't say a lot. There is a tone of response to this that is like, okay, woke point one was crazy. All cops are bastards aspect of the 2020 discourse dinged some people. Zoran had to walk back some of that stuff. Every time an NYPD boot is on your neck, that's the boot of Israel, one of his best bangers, but that stuff had to be walked back. And this is part of my concern about what it does to have these leftists running in the Democratic Party, is that are we making the party more left, or are they making us more right? And I think it's case by case, but especially in a news week where, again, I think it was the LAPD shot somebody's doodle because of a noise complaint. And the Mississippi police shot a 1-year-old child in the back of a car. The idea that we're like skirting back from the police when their PR is in the toilet strikes me as the wrong direction. You're not concerned?
No, I'm sorry. Wait. That's the question. We were talking about tweets, and then you told me that the cops are killing dogs and children.
You didn't? Wait, have you really not seen the clip about the dog?
No, I'm on a different part of the internet, I think.
Wait, Chris, what is even your life? You can't avoid this. It's a horrible story. I mean, as is obviously more so the one about the child, but the dog has really taken off. Wait, okay, all right, here we go. This is what we're doing.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry. No, this is horrible. No, lock in. This is horrible. Okay. Family dog shot. When you see a picture of this dog, it shouldn't matter. All dogs matter, but I'm putting it in the chat. Family dog shot and killed by LAPD during Knicks celebration at condo in Canoga Park, Los Angeles. There was a noise complaint called by this woman who was, I'm sure, hollering like we all were when the Knicks won. The police department says the dog rushed at officers after they were called to check on a woman who was screaming outside a condo building on Jordan Avenue. The dog, Jameson, was a 2-year-old golden retriever, St. Bernard and poodle mix. Cell phone video from the condo building shows the emotional aftermath. We'll insert a clip.
Now at 11, a shocking story out of the San Fernando Valley. Police opening fire on a dog in Canoga Park. They were called to check out a woman screaming. It turned out she was simply celebrating the New York Knicks NBA championship. Investigators say that dog rushed at officers before they shot and killed it. But the family tells us the woman was just happily watching the game with her dog before this all happened. Good evening, I'm Jory Rand.
I'm Liz Nagy. This is Eyewitness News at 11. Eyewitness News reporter Tim Pulliam is in Canoga Park tonight with new details.
Imagine celebrating the New York Knicks NBA title win with your family, then suddenly one of them is shot and killed by police. Well, that's exactly what happened here in Canoga Park inside this condo building. This woman's joy turned to explicit pain. Jameson, her 2-year-old golden retriever St. Bernard poodle mix, was gunned down Saturday by police. This is a photo of Jameson wearing a New York Knicks shirt during their NBA championship win. It was taken just moments before he was killed.
We were just so happy. We were just celebrating the Knicks. We were celebrating the Knicks.
Video from Citizen App shows the urgent scene on Jordan Avenue. This all began just after 8. First responders say a neighbor asked police to check on a woman who was screaming. Raymond Alvarez lives across the street and told me he was headed for a walk when he heard the noise too.
The screaming I heard was like, oh my God, oh my God. Just pure screaming.
LAPD claims when cops arrived to the woman's home, the dog rushed toward officers and attacked them. Alvarez says when he returned home, that's when he heard the gunfire.
I didn't think there were gunshots at first because, this area isn't really known for any sort of gun violence.
He's such a good dog.
The dog owner's son told me off camera his mother was just celebrating the New York Knicks championship win, and Jameson was energetic, but not violent. This is him licking cream from a cup last June. A year later, a memorial growing in the hallway where neighbors watched him die.
Is that a dog dead?
The circumstances that led to the police shooting are now under review.
I can't believe this is happening. I cannot believe this is happening.
Tim Pulliam, ABC 7, Eyewitness News.
It's very sad. She's wailing on the ground while police officers stand around her watching, not offering any kind of aid, not calling any medical assistance or anything. And that clip is everywhere, as are pictures of this really cute doodle wearing a Knicks shirt, the Knicks t-shirt that he died in. And so my point is just that with the PR of the cops being at an all-time low, it strikes me as interesting that these candidates are still getting back down on their 2020 tweets, which might have been a little maximalist or a little, uncouth in their wording because they were private figures just expressing themselves, but that carried sentiments that I think are accurate. We're still on the back foot. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I don't want to. I hope this doesn't make me sound elitist. I think I have no idea what the average voter thinks about or thinks is important when it comes to a candidate, because to me, funny, and even if they're not funny, cringy comments on the internet, that's just a reality of life. I have not been blessed to be cool my whole life or even smart or good at things. So I very clearly remember a recent past where it's oh, shoot, I hope people give me grace. So when I think about this is different because sometimes maybe it gets conflated. And we talked about this maybe briefly in the last time we met together, but Platner's Nazi tattoo is a completely different thing than, saying white people don't use washcloths. And right.
To be clear, I'm not sure if that's actually what she's, sure. The links to a lot of these are dead. So I'm looking at the characterization written up in a New York Times article.
Totally. And I don't mean to put that on anyone that's saying something so serious and terrible.
So heinous.
Yeah, no, I don't mean to. Okay, please forgive me. But what I'm saying is I think what happens is one of these things happens. The Platner thing is real, right? That, what is it, a token cough? Or I'm not even.
Yeah, what do you make of the Platner stuff?
The guy is loves killing people for sure, right? He is he was a military veteran and multiple tours, and then he went back and was in a private military contractor. He might be a perfect person for the national leftism. And I think it's funny that we have to even say that, considering the last time words like that were used, it was called national socialism. So
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know. I think in regards to organizing specifically, like on the ground, grassroots, I think that leftists should be more open to military veterans because they have a lot of great skills, they have insights, and some of them are really genuine in the ways that they've developed. That has to be proven through trust and real relationships. In regard to political office, where politicians have already proven time and time again that they are spineless worms, no, I don't trust that you didn't know that you got a Nazi tattoo with all your military buddies as you fantasized about murdering people abroad every day. So, and maybe that's a little hard line to take, but I just like, it is outrageous to me, that like, I don't know. I don't know how anyone could not know what that symbol is, especially if you're in the military specifically, because let's say for the sake of argument, he's not a Nazi. He doesn't have closeted, adoration for the mustache man, the painter. One of his buddies does. One of his buddies that's in his boot, like there are.
Well, is that fair? Let me steel man this because I gotta. So the argument goes, I've heard like Ryan Grimm has argued that it is normal, to pick a tattoo kind of based on the way it looks, skull and crossbone style off the wall of drunken out with friends, that if he thought it was a Nazi tattoo, that he wouldn't have repeatedly gone topless around his Jewish in-laws, I believe, including at their wedding where he's pictured shirtless while they're like doing the horror. That guilt by association isn't necessarily fair, etc. Okay, that's the argument. On the other side, there was in the hit piece, one of the hit pieces that came out against him in the last couple of weeks in the Times, etc., an argument made that there had been a conversation about a Totenkopf that he knew at some point in the past before he chose to cover it up after he was running for office, where he told a woman that it was called a Totenkopf and therefore knew at least what it was at that juncture. Do with that what you will.
Again, if he's shirtless at a Jewish wedding, that's either the most brazen thing I've ever heard, or he really didn't know. But at the end of the day, I don't want a person like that to be in charge. That person can hopefully one day, through efforts and through proving that it can be a part of movements, I guess. Like if you are you serve in the military, I hope you still want to come over to leftism, and I hope we can talk to you, and I hope that you show up and you organize and improve your community. But there are some things where, and again, the tattoo is not the mistake here. The mistake here is the multiple tours of duty and the private military contractor. And that in combination with the tattoo, right? It's kind of hard to like believe anything.
And what should people do now that he's won the primaries up against a Republican? Here we are.
No. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't want that guy in charge. I don't know if his failure to get my cosign means anything, but
yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I just am sort of sitting this one out. I said what I said, and I think there are some interesting questions about how he got in this position. Did you see the interview with the guys that recruited him?
No, I didn't.
And at this point, you hadn't vetted Graham Platner. You hadn't done a full scrub of who he is. How did you go about vetting him? And why did you?
We paid a nice firm a whole chunk of money and got some stuff back. Some of what you've seen on the news we got back. Other stuff we didn't.
Did the vetting process turn up the tattoo that became so controversial?
No.
The Reddit posts, did that turn up in the vetting process?
The firm sent us a thing, and it had some of the posts, but it didn't have all of them.
And what did you think about that? How did you think your way through the fact that he had posted these things on social media?
I said none of this will or should stop him from becoming a U.S. Senator.
And what was your
Clearly the
thinking
voters
there?
agree. I think if what the voters wanted were people who were grown in vats and had never done or said anything that they might regret their entire lives, we'd have a very different country. Part of our thesis here is that people do not want their candidates grown in vats. They want people who are real human beings, and they want people who do not look and sound like the vat-grown people who've been leading this country off a cliff for the last century. And that was Graham.
Just days after this interview, more details about Platner's past emerged.
Okay. So that video got dragged because of that gentleman's unfortunate upspeak. But putting aside his vocal inflection, that was Yale Law School grad Daniel Moraff and his fiancée, Leanne Fan. They're being attacked by conservatives as sort of out-of-touch Ivy League elites who have created this fiction of a working-class hero in Graham Platner. And while I am reluctant to rely on New York Post reporting, there is a funny, ironic sort of thing that seems to be happening here, where it does seem like this Yale Law grad who first sought out a union leader at Bath Iron Works, who was a Bernie Sanders DSA guy, seems to have been on the hunt for someone who looked the part and sounded the part from an outsider's perspective, someone who, it turns out, wasn't in fact from the hardscrabble upbringing that people sort of presume about him in a very Fetterman-esque way. And in a way that seems to be a reflection of the desire of a certain elite male aspiring masculinity, regardless of whether or not it is rooted in any kind of working class reality. That does, I think, invite some mockery.
Is what you're, maybe this is how all candidates get chosen. You're saying that Platner was focus grouped?
I don't think that's so abnormal to find and recruit. AOC, maybe this isn't the best argument in the favor of doing this, but AOC was obviously found and recruited by Justice Democrats, I think, as were a bunch of people in that cycle who are now comprised the base of the squad. I don't think that's so unusual.
No, I'm not saying it's unusual, but I guess what I mean to say is if that's the case, then that means that I'm supposed to believe that the Ivy League law guy has socialist, super progressive goals in mind.
He and his wife met while working for Bernie Sanders in 2020 and are described by the Maine Wire as hardcore members of the Democratic Socialists of America. When Moraff and Fan came to Maine last summer on a recruiting trip, they considered the union organizer, but dropped him at the last minute due to a skeleton in the closet. I think that was a different person. The pair had first gotten wind of Platner through the local Democratic Socialist Network, where he had been active. He had been featured in a recent New York Times travel story about oysters in Maine. They were sent to Platner's mother's restaurant near Sullivan, Maine, where he lives, and interviewed him. After talking with him, they felt they had their candidate, according to Post reporter Chadwick Moore. And this is not editorialization by the Maine Wire, so you can see where they're coming from. They, quote, groomed rich kid Graham Platner into a working class candidate, the headline on Moore's story said.
And I don't know. I really don't like talking poorly about any organization, DSA, PSL, any type of leftist organization, because I think...
Oh, so you're not going to want to get into the PSLT that apparently dropped a few days
I don't know
ago?
it.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, but I don't know it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that to me, if you're a leftist, how did you feel when it became almost it's so explicit about Bernie's liberal Zionism?
How did I feel?
Yeah.
That was pretty far out from the campaign where there had been a number of other issues on which I had already broken pretty hard with Bernie.
Yeah.
So it felt, if anything, like it validated my diminishing confidence in him over the intervening, 4 years since the campaign had been over.
Of course. But like the famous story about him and Michael Parenti, do you know that? How they were close?
I don't think I do.
Yeah, so him and Parenti are like best buds. I don't know best buds, but like Bernie supports the military intervention in Yugoslavia, and then it completely dismantles like their whole friendship. They never talk again, right? And so this is like a long-standing, like bad foreign policy effort. Or again, all of this is just to say that like if we're talking about leftists that can't have that feeling of like, ooh, shoot, wait, you have this, and this guy, I mean, they're saying, oh man, these Reddit tweets aren't the things that should have prevented him from being whatever, right? But it's like, bro, he was it he worked for Blackwater? Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, people will say it was a company that was a subsidiary that was bought by da-da-da, but like more or less.
I don't know how that can't be disqualifying. And if you're in the DSA and you're still thinking that that's okay, like, I don't know. But I mean, again, this all now makes so much more sense to me why the Jacobin is riding for the guy so hard. Because I guess he's homebrewed from the DSA. I mean, I guess good on them, but for getting this far, but that's crazy. Like, if my candidate on Twitter says that veterans are war criminals, I think that we should organize them, but I think it's okay to joke about because of how close to the truth it is.
It is interesting watching Daria Lisa push back in the context of the debate that just happened with Espilat. She has this sort of muted tone, generally speaking, a kind of soft-spoken way about her. And that combined with actually apologizing for some of the stuff, it strikes a very different tone than even Zoran, who walked some stuff back, but still was very confident on enough, especially related to Palestine, that it didn't feel like contrition for the most part. There were things that I picked at, including a lot of the NYPD stuff, but at least he was so strong on Palestine that it felt like overall he was standing his ground. And I don't know, I think I did put a clip from the debate in the chat.
I sincerely apologize because you did not deserve that language from me. And I would have loved to have seen a Black woman president. As a Black woman, I know how much that would have meant to so many, including myself.
Okay.
So that was an apology for her response to the Kamala Harris "do not come," where she said F Kamala Harris.
It didn't seem like there was like a gun on the other side of that camera. Like it was like blink once for if you're safe. That didn't seem like that to you?
100%. 100%.
I think that as in Asian man, Zoran Mandani, Southeast Asian man. What are we talking about? Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, okay, I guess overall, because we're hopping over, like this is actually really indicative of how unserious American politics are, right? We're talking about Palestine, we're talking about imperialism globally, and we're talking about people's lives being ruined. And yet at the same time, supposedly, people that are running for office here in America, one, can be war criminals, I guess, and everyone can go along with it, but also two, cannot tweet funny comments about Kamala Harris. So like both of those two things, and the problem we're trying to fix is American domination. And that's how unserious the whole thing is. I guess like a reason why I was so excited to come and speak with you is because it seems like in America, we don't have a good conception of what imperialism means. And for me specifically, what that means is that the ruling elite of the entire world, but predominantly America and the West, have carved out the world and then set up shop, one, through military bases, and then two, through like a series of like neoliberal institutions like the IMF, the World Bank, World Trade Organization, right? They force people into having open borders in regards to investments, right? So that foreign companies can come in and basically create resource extraction procedures. What this means, by and large, is no matter whatever's going on here, if we have the blue guy or the red guy or the blue girl or the red girl, whatever, the whole thing is to make sure that the ruling class can gain more and more dominant power. And when we are talking about imperialism globally, we have to recognize that America is the centerpiece of this whole thing, right? Which means that the things they allow us to do. I mean, I'm thinking back on the beginning of our conversation here. I'm with you. I didn't vote for Kamala because I think at the time I was like, yeah, you know what? We need third party. Like at the very least, we should get that 5% or something so we can run the Green Party. And that seems like a more useful use for my vote because Kamala and Trump seem virtually identical after a year of a Palestinian genocide. If my problem truly is the fact that the Palestinians are being genocided and that's not only okay, but somehow my government benefits, right? I think that's even worse. It's not even that they're apathetic to it. It's like there's nothing we can do. My government is funding it because they benefit from it. Then the only way that I can try to stop that is by organizing here in America. I will participate in electoralism. I hope I vote for the best candidates, but really I want to talk to people that are voting and try to convince them to join organizations that are also interested in an international solidarity that, wants to dismantle this stuff because I don't know. I'm not interested in getting the right take. And I'm sure I've said many takes. And I'm sure if you looked at my Twitter or Facebook, there'd be plenty of things that were like not great to say. Right. Because
not me. All my tweets are good. Every single last one. I'll never delete.
That's right. And don't look into it. Not only are they good, don't look for them.
They're screen grabbed and thrust in my face every day, but they're good tweets.
Yeah, they're good tweets. But yeah, like I just, I can't allow tweets to decide whether or not I want this person or that person to bomb a foreign country, right, and kill people.
So my only corollary to that, my only follow-up to that would be to say where I'm stuck. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's for me. Maybe I've emailed some economists to come and talk me through it. But I am stuck at the idea. You said if our country is benefiting from Israel's genocide, okay, then it's not going to be fixed by voting, and they're not going to stop no matter how much pressure. I think the problem is not just that the country abstractly benefits. We all know that the top benefits the most, and the rest is some trickle down meager crap. But if Americans benefit at all from not just our relationship with Israel, but our imperialism broadly, which we do, which we do. Mm-hmm. The iPhone is the cost that it is, and the Nikes are the cost that they are, and our meat comes from some rainforest that got cut down and a bunch of cows are grazing on it instead in the Amazon, all of the things that exist. Then what? Then how, I see this convergence. I feel like I'm going crazy, actually. I feel like I'm going crazy because I anticipate this convergence, and I have one half of the left, whom I love, saying, let Tucker live. He's getting the word out. This is important. And I broadly agree with that. But I do also want to have a side conversation about how Tucker's taking this somewhere. He's not just in this for ratings and shits and giggles. Mm-hmm. And if you're really a leftist, are you at all concerned that he's taking it in a direction that's a white nationalism? Let me take white out of it because people are just going to be mad. A nationalism that excludes a lot of people, certainly anybody who's not in the United States, and operates at their expense. And our alternative project, I think, is dramatically underdeveloped because we are not talking in real terms. If Republicans say getting a gas stove or getting rid of your gas stove, sorry, like they make a national event out of the idea that you shouldn't kill yourself with the fumes of your gas stove, and it's like a national issue to get people to try to switch over to induction.
Stuff. Yeah, sure.
Electric.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to take away your hamburgers, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And the left has been very meek in pushing back against that and creating our own narratives about the ways the world can be better, will be better in a post-imperialist space, but will be different in ways that you need to start kind of acculturating people to. It seems to me.
Okay. So you're saying that, like, basically, how do we communicate to a middle working class voter that could be captured by a potential Tucker Carlson who's running on a populist ticket, populist campaign? How would you basically communicate to them if we were to become anti-imperialist as a country, right? That would mean that things in your life would change. Maybe your car would be more expensive, your phone, your shoes, things like that.
I mean, I wouldn't lead with that stuff.
Sure.
I wouldn't lead with that.
But essentially, that's the contradiction. That's the thing that you're like, how do we do that? Because Carlson won't do it. He'll just lie, is what you're saying.
And even worse, he won't be an anti-imperialist because he doesn't want your phone to be more expensive. And he's fully happy to go to war with China. He just happens not to like Israel for whatever reason.
For whatever reason. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if it would be that expensive, like that much more expensive if we have the ability to subsidize everything to the tune of $1 trillion per year.
Maybe, but also
I'm not a math guy though. I don't know.
This is the question for a future economist. If the American dollar is also no longer the reserve currency, all of our MMT arguments about how we can fund things endlessly seem like they'd have to be modified as well? Question mark.
Like, I mean, it's not an immediate process, but I guess my point is to say if we defund and stop investing in the military project, the imperial project, that means that the technology and the industries here in America also don't have to do that. They don't have to be invested in that. And it also means that, like, our cops don't have to be as expensive because they're not also militarized. And also you don't need as many of them because we don't need the cops to be an occupying army. Like, there are all of these reverberations, right, that ripple out if you were to fundamentally change the way that America interacts internationally. But again, the question is not whether or not like that would change, yes or no. The real question is, how do we do that? And then real answers would arise. And I'm sorry, I sound like a broken record, but it really comes down to organizing in person and making that a daily part of your life, like a thing that you do once a week, twice a week, and really getting to know real people in your life that you know on your phone. You can call them up and you do stuff to try to make your community better, your state better, whatever, your nation better. And try to grow that organization as large and as intensely committed, principled as possible. Because only a militant working class would be able to do this. There is no candidate that would somehow be able to worm their way in, get into office without that. It just can't happen. And it hasn't happened. There's no historical corollary.
Can you name 3 specific types of organizations that you would like to see people joining?
Yeah, I would like, campaigns here in New York City, the No Casino FMCP, they're stopping Steve Cohen's casino, the billionaire owner of the Mets. He's building a casino next to the stadium. And it's going to destroy an immigrant neighborhood. I think more than 50% of adults in Corona, Queens are immigrants from a different place. And it's going to try to exploit them and oppress them even further by sucking out funds through casinos and also destroying businesses that are already there. Number 2, in downtown Brooklyn, there is the No Brooklyn Jail campaign. They're trying to stop or repurpose the $3 billion jail that's being built in downtown Brooklyn. It's one of 5 that are being built all over the 5 boroughs. I think in total it's a $13 billion project. no one wants this jail. They're calling it the woke jail because it has humanitarian architecture. The first two floors are going to be a community center. Why don't we just make all 13 stories a community center instead? Maybe a hospital, school, something free for the people. I also think that, really a mass organization like DSA, PSL, I got major love for all of those people because at the end of the day, if you don't know what you already think and you don't have people you already want to link up with, those big tent, and I guess larger, I don't think PSL considers itself a big tent organization, but those bigger organizations, socialist organizations, they're a great place to learn about what you think. As long as you come in humbly and willing to carry the water. So make something consistent, do it every day, do it every week at the very least, study and remain principled.
Chris. I hope I didn't do this. Is this my fault? Have I like red pilled myself on organizing and brought the audience with me in a way that's not constructive? Black pill? What's the bad pill?
I think that gotten out of the matrix, that the red pill is the bad one. Yeah. Red pill, black pilled, black pilled.
Yeah. Why do I have such a visceral reaction? Have I taken this too far? Why do I have such a visceral reaction to being told to organize?
Well, everyone hates it.
No, it's not that. I went to, by the way, I went to a absolutely wild meeting at like a community space in my neighborhood that's being shut down. I went with a friend last night. And I thought it was going to be like, let's have a conversation about what we want the space to be when we find, money to reopen it. No, there were so many angles. First of all, I feel compelled to write about this, even though I'm not really like writing right now, articles. It's a space that's existed for like 50 years. It has offered food to the homeless. It also operates as a cafe and bookstore. Okay. It shut down because there's like $150,000 of debts that haven't been paid. They laid off all the staff. The staff are very angry about it. They feel like it was done without notice, but there's no money to pay them. The solution seems to have been a country pastor from Kentucky who feels like it was his calling to come to Washington, D.C., who was walking by the store on the way to a nearby barbecue place, saw that it had been shut down, has a background in property management, and therefore called the head of the Pentecostal church that he's a part of, who got in league with Eli Lilly, who provided a grant to buy the space. You can't make this stuff up. And he has a friend at Shake and Bake who's looked at the P&L statements and believes that he can bring this place back, but probably not going to rehire any of the old staff. And there was a question about whether or not he would allow the police and ICE to come into the facility or if it was a safe space. And he said, well, I'm a chaplain for the police and I will follow the law. And you can imagine that people were in an uproar. It was so juicy. And what was so great about it, I mean, it's like not fun, but it was like, what was so like stimulating about it was to be in a space where everyone was so left and radical that every time this guy started saying, well, we have all these community initiatives about like youth entrepreneurship. This one guy, bless him, and like an Aperna for DC t-shirt goes, the economy is collapsing. The problem with like not having jobs isn't that kids don't know how to be entrepreneurs. This is ridiculous Jay-Z coded Michigas. We're not doing this. And like normally in those kinds of environments, I feel like I'm the only one in the room sitting here thinking like this entrepreneur shit is like crap. But this is a whole room of similarly ideologically aligned people having each other's backs against this obvious effort to turn what has been an LGBTQIA friendly, open, anti-ICE community space into, I don't know, some kind of corporate coffee shop that they're just going to flip for the value of the property at some point. Who knows? Maybe I'm being unfair to the kindly pastor from Kentucky.
I mean, I think you're spot on. There. But
let me tell you, I will say I enjoy, we're all in on helping with the organizing effort to find some funding for this place outside of this guy. So it's not not the act of organizing that I have a problem with.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what is it?
It is the conceit that here's what it is. I have a great deal of skepticism that the way that workers leverage their power 70 years ago is effective, will be the way it happens in the future. I don't think it's going to be the same. I think the same way that the Democratic Party adjusted very quickly after Bernie 2016 to make sure nothing like that could ever happen again. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, the way that the Powell memo set out a plan to make sure that the gains of the 40s and 50s and 60s wouldn't be replicated because they're going to change our campaign finance structure and they're going to change our media. And the Ellisons own every bit of, or Zionist interests of one sort or the other own every bit of media now. Actually, that the attacks on labor that have come from the right and the left, they see where we have power and they have been working assiduously to constrain it. And that's not to say that we shouldn't try, but I do think there's going to have to be some novelty in the approach.
Yeah, I mean, okay,
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying completely. I guess the way that I think about it is, although I do think there's the strike is one of the greatest weapons that the working class has, purely by the fact that we live in a series of cycles, right? You got to get your money so that you pay the guy so you can get more stuff so you can get your money. And if you get into that, there again, reverberating effects. Outside of all that, like Marxist whatever theory, I just think that there are people that you need to have in your real life where you're growing in intensity and commitment together, as opposed to being isolated by yourself, maybe getting more politically invested. But you need to be, not you specifically, but we need to begin to be able to have people we can get into trouble with.
I agree with that. But also, per those British kids that I referenced that are going to go to jail for God knows how many years, it's got to be a lot of people getting into trouble at once. It's got to be too many for them to lock us all up kind of a situation or kill us all, because they're fully prepared. They're infrastructurally prepared to put down the uprising. And I'm forced. I love a strike. Mm-hmm. I love a strike. But you know what happens every time you bring up mass strikes, general strikes? The striking experts log on to say, that's a stupid thing. Why are you even talking about that?
Yeah.
We can't even organize toward that. We can't even ruminate on that being a good idea. We can't even plan for that. Like, you're a dumb idiot for even saying the words general strike out loud, you dumb moron fool. And this is coming from, God bless him, I love how much he's done. I hate the way he's been targeted. But this was coming from some of our most vocal leftists like Hassan Piker.
Yeah, I mean, I think the left has a I told you so problem. Particularly online. I hope, I don't know, but I hope with my content, I'm trying to, in my small way, resist that. I want it to be inviting. I want leftism to be a thing where you're like, oh, shoot, I have already been thinking about things in that way, but you just put words to it. Or maybe I've been working through this. I might get it wrong as I learn. Because we shouldn't be doing so much finger wagging, right? Okay,
well, don't tell me. Hey, may many flowers bloom. I'm down for every idea.
Hey, am I finger wagging to you? I hope not.
Well, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Robin Williams' voice. It's not your fault. But I feel like
how I got these scars. These cigarette burns? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I feel like the organized car gets pulled in a way that feels like it derails any other kind of conversation that's, and also it's so vague. Like, I appreciate the things that you said, but why I asked you 3 specific things, like the Rikers Hotel, the casino, I get it. But one, most listeners aren't going to be in New York. These are hyper local interventions. Mine is obviously also even more hyper local. It's like what's happening in my little quadrant of DC. And it feels like it doesn't meet the moment. And it feels like no one wants to talk about anything that would meet the moment.
I'm going to can I respond to this in like a very short history lesson, maybe? So in 1968, the Communist Party of the Philippines was founded. There was already a Communist Party started in the 1930s, but it was reestablished from a Marxist-Leninist organization to a Marxist-Leninist Maoist organization. This is in 68. The reason why it was reestablished was because the communists before had thought they could come out from underground, right? They thought that they no longer had to be in hiding. They could let go of the armed struggle. The new communists, right, the Communist Party of the Philippines did not think this. And people died because the communists came out from underground. The government repressed them naturally. Over the next course of like 20 years, from 68 to, it might be 30 years, 68 to 91, they engaged in a series of very serious, what we would call within the Marxist lexicon, adventurism, what other people, they were bombing buildings, right? They're committing assassinations. And this was so aggressive because they were trying to prompt this type of revolution that they got ahead of the people. And really, they destroyed trust with the masses. And the masses are the only way that this whole thing works, is them being on your side. So it's not so much that we like pull them towards the right direction, but it's really we're in service of the masses and their needs and really their level of consciousness. So after this adventurism period, there's a thing called the Great Rectifying period, where they realize that they have to have multiple, I think you said it earlier, like they have to wear multiple hats, right? They can't be being so aggressive. All of this is just to say that because the armed struggle exists, but because it's not the main tool of the Communist Party of the Philippines, it always makes the stakes of their project this much higher and also requires that they actually do organizing efforts for the Filipino masses, the peasants and the farmers. If we take that as a model here, right, we are never, ever, ever going to convince the American masses, the working class, unless we can prove to them not only that we can win, but that we can affect their daily lives. And at a small level, you have to be able to get in where you fit in. You got to do it for them right now.
Chris, remember this guy named Luigi Mangione?
Yeah.
Remember how like every single person who wasn't the CEO of a healthcare company kind of had a, attitude about it?
Mm-hmm.
Things be happening, sort of an attitude about it. Well, kind of, I'm not saying that guy deserved it, but
yeah, totally.
Okay.
Well, allegedly,
dare I say supportive of Luigi Mangione? Okay.
Yeah, of course.
So is the argument, when you're saying like we can't get ahead of the people, what exactly are you saying? That the people aren't frothing at the mouth already for healthcare? That the people aren't frothing at the mouth to end these stupid, ceaseless wars? That the whole country, both sides of the aisle, are mad at Donald Trump for the pointlessness and horrible loss of life in Iran for like absolutely no reason? Or our involvement, our perpetration, our funding of the genocide, or any myriad other things that are like 10-to-1 issues? I mean, one of the things in the Ezra Klein interview that was so frustrating was this characterization of issues that are like, he characterized the Dems as being split on Gaza. Split? Okay, they're split in the way that, Minute Maid has some orange juice in it.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, like it's 99% concentrate. It'd be like, what are we doing here? We're all in on Palestine.
Totally.
So, like, I do think that there's a kind of, I'm not saying you're doing it. I'm not saying doing it intentionally. But if I were to do a follow-up book to Gabrielle's, compatible left, and I were to write a list of, like, how to tell if someone's compatible left, one of the things that I would have on that list is, do they obscure how ready the public is for change by making arguments that we have to persuade when what we really have to do is act?
But no, so I'm hearing the distinction. I'm gonna push back. Is the public so oppressed, exploited, and degraded that they're immensely upset? Yes. Yes, absolutely they are. But has the public assumed the responsibility of their own personal accountability towards building the future? I don't think so at all. Maybe their own individual lives, maybe their families' lives. What?
Say more about that. Their own personal accountability for building the future.
When we organize, when we join an organization, whatever it is, right? When the Filipino Communist Party organizes, the point is to go into the communities, to go into where the masses live, recruit them, radicalize them, develop them into cadre, right? Develop them into an organizer. And an organizer is a person that takes on the responsibility of recognizing that this shit is not going to happen on its own. And the goal, I think, for anyone worth their salt is that every single person is an organizer at one point eventually. Every single person takes on the responsibility of recognizing that if we do not work in a collective, coordinated, militant way, then the people with all the resources, all the infrastructure, and all the history, all the information now with Palantir, right? They're going to keep winning. But the one thing that we do have is that we outnumber them 1,000,000 to 1. I don't know, right? It's like 10 million to 1 or something. So, like, if that can be captured, the sheer differential in terms of like how many people are on each side, then we can win. But that will only happen if people are committed to working in coordinated fashion. I mean, you said it earlier, speaking to the comrades that got arrested in the UK. We need a bunch of people to do it all at the same time in a way where, you can't get all of us. That's the only way it's going to work. But that's only going to happen if we organize them.
Yes. I will say, though, that whenever I ask, because you're not the first person I've asked this, that when people are talking about organizing, I hazard to guess that they're not saying let's organize. They're not arguing for organizing mass protest events where we are breaking into defense companies and tying ourselves to the masts of ships with bombs on them, or barricading the road to the Pentagon, or whatever it is, throwing paint at paintings, the way that these kids in the UK are getting arrested for. What they're saying is, with all due respect, join the DSA.
DSA, PSL, or really
whatever,
any militant org. But I'll tell you why. When I first got involved in organizing myself, my first project was around the time of the North Dakota pipeline. Right. And I was out in Texas. I get off the bus, first 30 seconds, all of a sudden I'm in the U-Haul van. It's driving. We're pulling out these like barrels filled with cement, and we're chaining people to these fences so the trucks can't get in, right? So they can't build the thing. We got, over the course of the time that I was there, we got a lot of people involved, and we got a lot of people arrested. And all those people had to deal with court cases for a long, long time. I mean, it was felony mischief charges. So like, it's a balance. It's a balance of being big enough, building enough trust that you can go after large wins, whatever those large wins look like to you. But also doing it in a way where your membership is at the very least as safe as possible. We don't want to be used.
Yeah, when I think that there's an unwillingness to talk about this because the risks are real and significant. That's why I never said, people are so mad at me because I say her name every other podcast episode and I butcher it every time, and I have no excuse for this. But Jessica Resniak, you know, who is like doing a 9-year term for chaining herself to like an oil pipeline. I bring it up because I don't want to be accused of being naive about the risks. I bring up the Cop City stuff. I bring up all these sentences because this is what it costs now, and every year we wait, it's going to cost more, frankly, because they are ratcheting up the criminal penalties for these things. They are actively anticipating that we're going to do this and making it harder for us to do it every single year. They saw the Dakota Access Pipeline. They saw the energy around it. They saw young activists like AOC spring up out of it. They saw Jill Stein get some shine off of being there, you know, and they said, oh, no, we can't have heroes minted at events like this. We're shutting it down. And so I don't disagree about the risks. I think, unwilling to ignore that nothing has come easy ever in the past. And in fact, there's even there can be a kind of a whitewashing of civil rights history and labor history that doesn't act like it wasn't deeply violent and brutal.
Of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that people didn't waste away in jail.
Totally.
Or die.
I mean, Black Liberation Movement explicitly, of course.
And I don't, you know, I think a lot of people in my position are willing to talk about what needs to be done because they're trying to avoid the criticism. You're just sitting in your ivory tower telling other people to take risks. And I appreciate that criticism. But also, I feel an obligation to just say what it is. What am I going to lie to you and say, goats? Like, if you just pick up trash along the side of the highway for long enough, the world is going to change?
I guess,
or if we elect enough AOCs, the world, I mean, God bless her, but the world is going to change.
I guess I just mean to say that, like, and obviously we're talking very hypothetically, but like, if people were to engage in very extreme measures, like, what does that even mean? Where on earth are you being supplied with whatever you need to get stuff done? How can you trust the people that you're engaging in this with? Like, in a way in which you can coordinate to the level of a militarized police force and actual military? Like, these are all extreme questions that, like, even if that were the case, that's the only answer, then the answer right now in the immediate is still to organize and develop relationships, because in order for that to be the tactic, it would have to still happen on such a large scale, because the enemy is the most lethal military in the entire world in human history. So, like, both roads, as far as I can see, lead towards organizing in terms of developing very strong relationships with real people that you can act in a coordinated, long-term effort with.
Yeah, it's not the question of is organizing a good idea. It's what are we organizing? And it's the vagueness of the instruction to organize, or it's the ask to organize into, frankly, de-radicalizing organizations that funnel you into electoral projects that ultimately funnel you back into the Democratic Party, which is in fact the problem.
I mean,
is doing the war, is the party that is in fact doing the imperialism.
I've had a lot of experience with people in the DSA and in the PSL, and my experience has been one of, there are some people that, like, maybe are more invested in electoral projects, and then there are other people, and if not a majority, a significant minority, that are incredibly principled, incredibly disciplined.
But it's not about the people, it's about the organization. And we know DSA is self-described, not interested in third-party politics. It's not interested in that kind of radicalism. It was not founded to be that, and it's not that. And it doesn't mean it can't have value, or that individuals who I'm a card-carrying member.
Sure.
I might not have paid my dues recently, but I was at one point a card-carrying member. But that's not, I mean, it's not about that. Chris, you know that that's not what I'm saying.
It's just like, I don't know, there's internal politics and structures on how they make decisions and change. And as far as I know, that there are major conversations and discussions about breaking from the Democratic Party. I'm not privy to those conversations, so I don't know them. But again, I don't think that this is like so. I mean, I feel like we're disagreeing, but I just don't understand. Like, we have to develop these relationships. And like, it really is the relationships more than it is the thing, because you can pick whatever you want. You can make the thing that you do, cleaning up your neighborhood. You can make your thing providing food pantry. You can make your thing, providing free services in terms of like advocacy work or writing letters, whatever it is that gets you rubbing elbows with other people that are like-minded like you. And then once people are invested in that, you have to push the limits as to what you're doing over time, repeatedly, consistently. And eventually you'll get to wherever you're trying to get us to.
All right. Well, all I know is that my new raison d'etre is keeping this Eli Lilly huckster out of my neighborhood. So that's going to be my preoccupation for the foreseeable future. Chris, Jean-Paul, it was a pleasure to chat with you. Tell people they can find more of you and your content on the internet and beyond.
That's at Jean-Paul _Fartre _JEAN_PAUL_FARTRE_. We're trying to make leftist theory, hard, dense theory a little bit more applicable, or legible, I should say. And just talk about it in regular, everyday terms. So if you're into that, we'd love to have you. Reach out to me, ask questions, tell me how I'm wrong about whatever. We'd love to hear it.
All right. Thank you for spending so much time with us today. Thanks to all of you for tuning into this episode of Bad Faith Podcast. You know you can get additional episodes of Bad Faith every Monday at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. You'll find absolutely no ads on this channel. This is something that I don't say, but I was listening to a podcast that I like recently, and they started doing the thing where they just insert the ads very violently without there being like, hey, we're going to take an ad break. And I thought to myself, I should brag more about not having ads on this show, because that was very disruptive and unpleasant. So you're welcome. And I'll see you on Monday. As always, take care of yourselves and remember to keep the faith. Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.